and we manufacture a product called Flight Control Plus, which is a chemical spray designed to move geese off of turf properties humanely and to keep them off. Today I want to review with you how you can build a very profitable, humane goose control management business. But first I want to start with, why do geese need to be managed? This chart says basically that today the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services report there are approximately 7 to 8 million resident geese in the U.S. And despite the hunting pressure, which yields about 2.5 to 3 million geese per year, the giant Canada goose population continues to double every 3 years or so. Plus, the Canada goose is protected under the Migratory Bird Act, even though most resident geese in the U.S. never migrate. I'd like now to turn to some myths and some facts about the Canada goose. The first myth is that geese fly south to avoid the cold. The facts are that geese are not bothered by the cold at all. The second myth is that geese feed only near water. The fact is geese would feed just about anywhere there is young, succulent grass. Geese will walk great distances from ponds or lakes to find these grasses. The third myth is that geese can only land in water. The fact is, geese really like to land in water because it's easier on their legs. But they will land in open fields if they see grasses or plants like soybeans just coming through the ground. These are like filet mignon to them, and they'll travel great distances. The fourth myth is that geese instinctively migrate. The fact is, the U.S. resident goose has lost his or her ability to migrate. They have chosen to stay in the U.S. because the U.S. has a great climate for them. There's plentiful food. There are reduced or no predators in the area where the resident geese are primarily found in the U.S., and that is in the urban areas where you and I and the rest of the folks live, and that's where they have become the biggest pest. Pardon me, I've got to go forward again. So why are the geese here in the U.S., and why are they living in the areas where you and I live? In your neighborhoods, in your office parks, in your recreational areas, in schools and near marinas. They're living there because these environments provide, first, lots of healthy and plentiful young grass, which they prefer. Two, there's lots of safety. Retention ponds and newer developments and neighborhoods and office parks provide natural areas for geese to feel safe. Plus, government regulations have provided lots of green spaces, providing many natural feeding sites for geese. Geese feel very comfortable in areas where they can see other geese feeling. So with all of this green space to choose from, geese will feed in 5 to 7 different places a day. They feel very comfortable here in the U.S. The next chart says, why do they make such a big mess? Let's start out by saying geese are grass-eating machines. They consume 2.5 to 3 pounds of grass per day, and they will deposit 1.5 to 2 pounds of feces each and every day. Geese will eat young grass down to the roots, and they'll completely strip the turf of vegetation. And geese feces are high in nitrogen and phosphorus and can lead to aggressive buildup of algae in retention ponds and lakes that have very poor aeration. Additionally, their droppings may contain high chloroform counts, which again are a potential hazard. That's why they're a nuisance. Now, hopefully, these first 5 charts have shown you why the Canadian goose has become such a nuisance in urban areas and needs to be managed. They became a nuisance because, to summarize, their numbers growing, they can be aggressive, especially in mating season, they damage grass-eating sites, they potentially damage water roosting sites, plus their frequent and large droppings leave a constant mess. So how can you humanely get rid of geese from sites where they're creating a major problem? First, you need to understand a little bit about their behavior, and that brings us to the next chart. Geese choose sites for two things, food and safety. You can temporarily change their behavior by introducing a threat or a warning. But I have to tell you, geese will adapt very quickly to any threat that doesn't have a constant consequence. They will adapt if there's not a constant consequence. There are two ways to effectively change a goose's behavior. One is to introduce a threat with a consequence, or two, to take away their food. And that brings us to our first question and answer chart. Any questions up to this point in time? Since I don't hear anything, I'll assume that's a no.
Did somebody have a question? You're welcome to unmute your microphone and ask it out loud.
Okay?
Okay, great. Thanks, Lanny.
Then we'll move on. The next chart talks about geese control techniques. The first one is harassment. There are pyrotechnics, there are sonic devices, reflective tapes, a whole series of things that have been tried over the years. Most of them not very effective. The second one is false threats of predators like fake decoys and fake coyotes, fake owls, dead goose decoys. Trained border collies work extremely well when they're there, but they're not there 24 hours. And the geese learn quickly to come to feed on that site when the dogs are not around. There are a lot of repellents. Many of them have taste and odor problems. And then you can modify the habitat by fencing. You can put lines and wires and ponds, and you can use vegetative barriers around the water areas. And of course, there are population controls of huntings, roundup, and egg gathering. I think it's fair to say that an effective control program that modifies behavior by addressing two things near and dear to the goose: food and safety. Flight Control Plus warns the bird. Our active ingredient has a natural parallel that teaches the bird in advance. Flight Control absorbs light in the UV range, and birds can see it, and we cannot. And birds sense that there's something wrong when Flight Control is sprayed on the grass. They become very leery of eating the grass that they see when they see it in the ultraviolet spectrum. In a few minutes, I'll show you what that looks like. Therefore, at this point, we start to introduce a threat to the goose. So we have a visual warning. They see the compound in the ultraviolet light spectrum. If you look to the right, you will see grass treated with normal light, and then you'll see grass treated under ultraviolet light. And as you can see, the goose all of a sudden can see a different color on the grass. That's his warning. That's his threat. Then we have an anti-feeding warning. When geese ingest this product, they get a strong gut reaction to the treated turf, and they don't like that. So if the goose samples from the treated areas, it will cause digestive irritation. It doesn't hurt the goose. It doesn't harm the goose. It doesn't cause them to have any kind of bowel movements other than the ones they normally have. It just gives them mild indigestion. They'll quickly start to honk, they'll go to water, they'll come back and try it again, and then they learn that they don't want to eat there, and they'll start to leave the treated area. Without the ability to feed, the goose is going to abandon the site. So we deliver a consequence to go along with the threat. How did we develop the product? Well, first, we developed the product in conjunction with the USDA and the National Wildlife Research Center in Sandusky, Ohio. We tested this product for many years before it was finally perfected. Genesis Laboratory has done a lot of bird repellent studies. You can look at their website and you can find out that they have found that flight control was the most effective way to move birds. And we have done a lot of our own studies internally. So what we effectively do is we modify the behavior of the goose, and we teach them through a learned response, so that when they sample the area, and if you look at the little picture to the right, what you'll see is a line, a red line down there. On the right of the line, the grass has been treated with fly control. On the left, it has not. The goose stands there, he'll look at it, he will not cross the line. He stops eating in the treated areas. He's learned. And so without the ability to feed, the goose is forced to find an alternate feeding area, so he's going to leave. We deliver a very strong consequence. How do you apply the product? Well, the first thing you got to do is define the drop zone. And the drop zone is going to be defined, quite frankly, by the geese. It's going to be where the majority of the goose droppings are. And what we suggest is that you treat the drop zone very thoroughly and go about 5 to 10 feet around the drop zone. The rates per acre will vary based on the time of the year, and your application rates are going to run from a half a gallon to 1 gallon per acre. We ask that you add sticker in the late fall applications, and I'll come back to that later. We ask that you check your calibrations for rate coverage. We want you to have a very fine spray, so you want to use a very fine tip nozzle. If you're using look at a ballpoint pen, the spray tip of that very end of that pen is about what you want to have. So your strategy is to cover the entire drop zone, and that will eliminate a lot of the acreage that many places have where they have geese. You cover the drop zone, the geese is not going to come, and they're going to quickly leave. Okay, questions and answers on this. I assume there are none?
Lanny, you must be doing too good of a job covering it all.
Either that or I'll put everybody to sleep. We'll opt to the first.
No, I think it's going great so far. If anybody has any questions, you can either wait for the last Q&A section or you can type them into the chat box on the right-hand side of the screen.
All right, so now I'm going to move to why you really signed on for this. Why become a geese control specialist? There is an established need to effectively and humanely move geese from many urban sites that impacts the daily activities of many people. Plus, as you will see in a few minutes, the geese control business can be extremely profitable. And thirdly, the market already exists. People from all walks of life are looking for solutions. 2 weeks ago, at the National Facilities Management and Technical Show in Baltimore, we had a booth. We generated in 11 hours of trade show time over 120 highly qualified leads from key decision makers in companies, in governments, both federal, county, and local governments, many municipalities, school systems, colleges, and manufacturing plants who have goose problems now and want them resolved. We have followed up with most of these people, and we're starting to see them starting to order product because they really have a problem. The problem exists, and it's getting worse. This existing need creates a business model that's large enough for you to quickly achieve profitability as a standalone unit or as a separate unit of your existing business. So let's talk about getting started. What do you need? Well, first, obviously, you need a license to spray turtle. You need a truck and probably a trailer, especially if you're going to specialize and go after commercial markets. If you're going after commercial markets, you will need a good commercial sprayer, a Z sprayer, a Toro Workman, or something of that sort. You want one that has good spray control, and you will probably need a good backpack sprayer. On the other hand, if you just want to concentrate on high-end homes and other residential markets, you're just going to need several good backpack sprayers and a water source. One of our guys that's doing this business very well has bought several of the 25-gallon water bottles you frequently see in offices, and he's put it in his van. We have people who are concentrating both in the commercial area and in just high-end homes and residential areas, all with great success. The fourth thing, I guess it is, you're going to need is a solid business plan to approach either of these markets. If you're going to go after commercial, you need a plan for that, or if you're going after residential, you need one for that. And you're going to need some prospecting time and probably some time and effort in advertising. Now, we can help and we can advise in all of these areas. So your next question is, where are your potential customers? Corporate office sites and office parks are the biggest market that we currently have in our Goose Control business. The key to these markets are to find the property manager that controls that site. Once you know who that is, then half the game is won. The second largest are athletic fields in municipalities, and there you need to start with park and recreation departments. Universities, especially their athletic fields, and especially with the smaller private ones, are another large market for us. Public and private high schools have begun to be very good markets for all of the Goose Control products. A market that's developing but looks to be potentially a large market are cemeteries, as is campgrounds. Campgrounds are beginning to have a lot of geese problems. Obviously, the next two waterfront properties of marinas have been a market for a long time. High-end homeowners are really interesting, very interesting, because they're willing to pay top dollar to get geese off their property. They don't want their $1 million plus home to have goose droppings all over the sidewalk and driveways. And of course, one of the bigger markets is homeowner associations, especially the newer ones that have retention ponds where geese seem to find they love. The next chart talks about suggested selling strategies. And one, I want to start by saying we strongly believe you should initially propose selling your customer a year-long program of applications. Typically, we would suggest a program that is going to run either 7 applications or 11 applications per year. Both of these programs, either 7 or 11, would start with a heavy application in March and end with a heavy application in either late November or early December. The end of the year application will last through the winter. Flight Control Plus is water impermeable, so once you put it down properly, it's going to stay there through the snow and the sleet. And it will be there to deter the birds from nesting in the early spring until you can get around again to putting down another heavy spring application. This is the application we recommend adding sticker to. And the reason we want you to do that is we want to make sure that it adheres very good to each blade of the grass. Now, during the year, you're going to do several lighter applications and the rest of the time in the range of 50 to 70% of the label rate. So you're going to be using 1/2 to 3/4 of a gallon per acre. And that's necessary because you will have the product cut off the grass. It won't come off except by being cut off. The next thing we recommend is that you set a minimum stop charge for small areas. We found that typically $240 to $275 per treatment is a good charge. We recommend for the larger commercial sites that you price strictly by the acre. This works out more effectively with the property owners. We strongly believe, and I'm going to say this twice, we strongly believe you should avoid at all costs partial or one-time applications. They don't work, and it hurts your reputation, and it will hurt ours. Now, I want you to keep in mind Flight Control Plus is a highly profitable service, and you're going to want to spend the time necessary with each customer to understand and to meet his needs. And that's the key factor to solidifying your business account by account. When you thoroughly understand the customer, our guys have found they have repeat customers over and over. We also suggest that you set up your pricing on a yearly basis, or at least try to keep it to twice a year. Most of our specialists try to give an incentive to get paid in advance with the promise they'll keep the geese off the property. What they promise is if you see a goose or a dropping, call and we'll return and make sure we get that problem solved. Now this kind of a billing system is usually very helpful to the client as he plans his budget for the coming year, and it reduces your paperwork. What's the growth and revenue potential for this product? Well, for the purposes of this webinar, we've chosen a 1-acre site, and we've decided we'd do 9 applications during the year. We priced the job at $400 per acre, and that seems to be a good competitive price for commercial applications. So on that basis, this job would generate $3,600 in revenue. And we've estimated labor at $18 per hour and said it would take an hour and a half to do the job. We calculated you would average 0.75 gallons per acre over the course of the year. So over the 9 applications, you're going to average using 3/4 of a gallon per acre. We further calculated that you're a good customer of the distributor you will buy the flight control from, so your price would be around $200 a gallon. That gives an application cost of about $1,600 for the 9 application and yields a profit potential of $2,000 or 56%. On this chart, we talk about proposal strategies. We think it's in the second year, you ought to be setting a goal of writing $300,000 to $400,000 of proposals. And we know that if you've done your homework right, and what I mean by that is if you've defined the decision maker in the account, and if you've answered all of their questions on why this is the best method for effectively moving geese off and keeping them off their property, our experience shows that your closing percentage rate should be 50 to 60%. At a gross profit margin of 55%, you're potentially looking at $83,000 to $132,000 of gross profit margin for the first full year of operation. Probably that will be the second year for most of you if you decided to do something. We expect your renewal rate to be about 90+% annually. That's been our experience thus far. Again, please keep in mind we suggest writing yearly or multi-yearly proposals for customers for their budgeting purposes, and it will also help you forecast and grow your business. It will also help you decide when you need to add additional people. So what might you expect your first year? Well, you're starting now in goose season, and we expect that conservatively, with hard work, you could probably write proposals for about $150,000. And we expect you could conservatively convert 50% of that to business this year, or about $75,000. We again conservatively would expect that next year that would double. And we'd expect with minimal advertising, such as Google Words or local newspapers, with good word of mouth about the quality of your applications, your business will grow even faster. We are willing to work with you to help you get started. We'll help you build a website if you don't have one. We'll help you create social media pages if you don't have those. Questions and answers. Kristen? Hello? Hello?
Lanny, can you hear me?
Tommy's got a question.
Can you hear me? Yeah, go ahead.
Tommy's got a question on there.
Lanny, Tommy Raines is asking, what kind of applicator's license is required for application of flight control?
Just a turf license. Spraying on turf. It's
Now, is that different everywhere?
Typically, in all the states we've looked at, Tommy, it's usually a pesticide license for spraying on turf. It's usually the lowest license is usually a Category 3. But you'll have to check with your own state licensing people.
And we had another question about videos. Lanny, do you have any videos on your website, or can you make any available to those people who were present on today's webinar that demonstrate the product being used and then show how it works?
Absolutely. We have those, and I'll be glad to, when I turn to the next slide, which is the last slide, I've been too fast, is the next slide. We have, if somebody will send it to me, we've got a lot of videos that talk about applications and how to do it. We've got all of the things that I've talked about, and I'm even going to put this video up, put this up on BrainShark, so that'll be on the website shortly too.
Okay.
Yes, we have all of those.
Okay, we had one other question, and I'm trying to find it because it was asked a little while ago. And I think you might have answered it as you continued through your PowerPoint. But the question was, would this product typically be needed to be reapplied next season?
Yes.
Or if a new group of geese come into a space that's already been treated, does it need to be retreated?
The answer is if the grass has been cut, yes, it's going to have to be retreated.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's the reason we looked at the applications. When you looked at the applications rate of 7 to 9 to 11 times a year, you're going to have to look at the goose pressure, and you're going to look and make judgments yourself as you get to know each of the properties.
Okay. And somebody else asked about the PowerPoints. Lanny, will you be willing to share these PowerPoints? I will mention that this webinar will be posted on our website, and so you can access the presentation again. But Lanny, would you be willing to share the PowerPoints?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Again, we'll do whatever is necessary to help people get started in this business.
It sounds like one of the advantages of this product, or products like this as well, where it's a deterrent, is that I know sometimes goose management work, you can only do it for a certain time of year. And this, it sounds like, can be applied year-round because you don't have any restrictions on interfering with the geese.
No, there are no restrictions whatsoever. All right.
Well,
any other questions? Let me go to the last slide, which just basically says, if you want information, you can contact me at my email or at this phone number underneath. We will get you, we have on our website information on how to apply. We have the story. You're going to put this up, Kristen, on your website, this presentation. I'll be glad to share this presentation. We have a whole series of BrainShark presentations that I'll be glad to send anyone that describes how it goes. And on this QR scan, you can even go up on that, and it will tell you more about flight control.
Very good. All right. Well, if there are no other questions, I want to thank you, Lanny, for your time today, and please thank TJ for getting you up and running with the technology. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I have to have somebody. Us older folks need a technology expert, and she's absolutely fantastic. I want to thank WCOA for having me on today, and all of you guys that put up with me for the last 35 minutes. So thank you.
Thank you very much. And for those of you who are still on the line, our next webinar will be held on March 26th. The topic will be What's New with NACOA Insurance Program. Jim Pace with Christian Baker will be presenting that webinar. Christian Baker does have a program that's available exclusively for wildlife control operators. And so if you're interested in that and you haven't already signed up, please just email us at gonacoa@gmail.com. I thank everybody for your time today. I will send out the PowerPoints and videos that Lanny provides me to everybody that was on today's meeting. And as I indicated, this session was recorded and will be up on our website for members to be able to access in the near future. And thank you everyone for your time. They're all hanging out so I can do before I end the meeting. Yeah.